I mean, it's such a shame. I tried to be an optimist, but people stay the same. I know I make that statement as if people never change. It's not even my fault, but why do I feel so ashamed? Hey, is this what they became? Is this how they behave? Break the key off the lock, I snap the lock from the chain. Pay me for your thoughts that I don't ever wanna save. The things you entertain, I would have sworn was just a phase. Missing pieces from the puzzle, so I can't complete the maze. Hey, then I change my ways, get the bully out the cage.
Children in the Cape Flats areas are accustomed to 40 plus. I am fortunately not in that situation currently, but I am familiar with that situation where there's 40 plus children in a classroom. Whereas in the more affluent areas, you'll find that there's like 30 or less in a class, which makes it more manageable. I, in a sense, was lucky that I didn't teach at a school that was frequently disrupted by gang violence, whereas colleagues of mine, basically stop, drop, and roll. If you can imagine that kind of situation, you're busy teaching and gunshots go off. The kids already know the drill; they just fall flat on the floor, and that's a challenge. That's a big challenge on the Cape Flats. Poverty is definitely a big challenge because circumstances at home. School has electricity and running water, so that's the things you and I may take for granted. For the children, that is, in some cases, it's a luxury, because if you speak to them one on one and you ask them, what their day looks like after school, for instance, what do you do with yourself? What are the chores? Then they say, I have to go and get water. What do you mean you have to go and get water? I have to go and get like big, 20-liter tanks, put it on a wheelbarrow, go and get water somewhere at the communal tap, bring it home so that my parents can cook and do the basic chores. Whereas you and I just turn open the tap and there's water. Electricity, as in the area where we are now, has recently been introduced. The city put up those structures, those poles and stuff where the community has electricity. So that helps little by little. If you have a child who comes back to you years after you taught them and they qualified as a doctor, for instance, I had a gentleman, he's still in that community. He didn't actually move out of the community despite his success. Randall Ortel, you might have seen him on social media or on even in the mainstream media. He qualified as a doctor at Stellenbosch University. So that's like very rewarding for us as teachers when we see that a child like that is, you know, rose above his circumstances and then made a success of his life. The classrooms have the basics. There are things that are supposed to be there, to make teaching possible. But when it comes to technology, the school that I'm currently at has a computer lab, which was donated by an NGO, you know, who came in and set up a computer lab. But there's not enough computers for all the children, but it helps, to introduce children to technology. Education departments, they check on schools, they make sure that they have what they're supposed to have in like the basic things, textbooks, the necessary stationery and stuff like that. We fortunately have sponsors who kindly donate at the end of each year for the following year. So that's okay.
What do you think could be done at the policy level to improve the quality of education in the Cape Flats?
I think on policy level, the people who design education or put the curriculum together need to interact more with the people in the trenches, which is us, and get our views and see how, like almost like market research, to get to know what is needed and what is not. Because you can't just basically, like, everybody must do the same thing everywhere, because needs differ, situations differ, and poverty has a big impact. Drugs is rife, and children sometimes, not sometimes, they are exposed to drugs even at the primary school, and that is a big factor. It impacts on their learning. The community values education because they know this is the way out of the current situation. So they encourage children, most parents encourage children to go to school. They make sure the children are at school most of the time and that they get what they're supposed to get and get to high school because they know a lot of the companies nowadays have this philosophy that if you didn't finish matric, you can't just go and work at any grocery store or fast food chain unless you finish school. So that is a big thing. There's a organization that comes to our school on a weekly basis, and they work with grade 6 and 7s, and they kind of expose them to what is possible and what can be done and what you can study if you are interested, and if there's bursaries available for that particular interest.
What are some common misconceptions about students in the Cape Flats?
They have no drive, they have no ambition, which is totally off. Children will come and ask you sometimes about careers that they want to pursue, and you need to make it clear to them. I have taught children that have achieved success, went to university and colleges, and they are successful. So you don't have to get stuck here and just do an odd job here and there. There's possibilities out there.
Christine Pastano, hapon din takilala. Deze was just going to put paye yet was also vrugte vriendtes paye cheap. En ons paye donations, paye mense, was ons paye lekker.
I graduated in the year 2000 and I started off doing community development and I did quite a bit of everything. Uh, Normal social work, I worked for the Family Advocates Office, I worked in training and development, and my recent role is I'm a senior program manager at New World Foundation. We've been through this whole idea of apartheid with our government of national unity, but it's still the same old problem. And this is what we are experiencing. We still have children that don't have proper caregivers. That is the main issue that we are struggling with at the moment. Most of the children that we deal with are maybe single-headed households. They're basically looking after themselves. They don't have a caregiver. They literally fend for themselves, and that is the reason why they're not at school. Because they're on the streets, they belong to gangs, and that is their means of sustaining themselves. Because if once they belong to a gang, the gang makes sure that they have something to eat, the gang makes sure that they have a bed to sleep on. So that is the continuous issue that we are dealing with and faced with. It does impact them emotionally and mentally. Because imagine not having something to eat. You're not able to wake up the next morning to go to school. And that is the predominant issue that we have. Children don't have anything to eat. They don't go to school. They suffer tremendously. Some of them suffer from abandonment. You will think, oh my gosh, this child is only suffering from a mother or a granny that can't look after them. But deep down inside, if you look at the underlying issues, they do suffer. Abandonment is a great aspect where the mental issues are concerned. Now, we as the social care providers, we need to look after these clients. At the end of the day, you sit with an influx of children not getting proper care, not being looked after. Some of them have severe behavioral issues. It impacts us as a social worker itself. Then we sit with emotional issues. We sit with that baggage. Because imagine seeing 100 clients a week, you're going to suffer. Now it's that client suffering and it's your suffering as well. So it does impact everybody. In the community that I work with, on each and every corner, if there's, they have something called courts, right? In each and every court, if it's not every second household, you can be how innocent, you will be related to a gangster. They have different gangs. It's the, I don't know if I can mention, mongrels, the junkie funky kids, 28, that's the olden days, but they have new names now. But it does affect each and every household. You can be a churchly person, but then it's either a child, and I'm generalizing now, your child or a child or a cousin, nephew that's affiliated to a gang. Then if we see a client, we have to be 100% sure. We can't say that the person, we can't help the client. We have to help the client whether they do belong to a gang or a relative belong to a gang. We just have to put in extra safety measures to make sure that we are looked after, our centers looked after, and the greater community. It can become very difficult. What we are doing at the moment is My director, she belongs to the CPF. And then with the CPF, they have different, like we have street and court committees within the area. So it's like one person in the court, um, that's chairing that entire facility, and then they help the CPA. So, for example, if there's any issue, whether it's drug related, crime related, they get together and they actually speak about the issues. So that is one way that we are trying to facilitate. Not that we can facilitate gangsterism, but to ensure that it doesn't escalate. But what my director has been very good at doing, she actually tried to build a relationship with some of the most anonymous gangs in the area. So behind our center, there is a gang leader. So if we have functions or whatever, and there's expensive equipment on our property, then she will just liaise with him. Don't you mind looking after ABC? And then he says, no problem, because it's for our children. So we try our best to accommodate each and everyone in the community. GBV actually very rife in the community. We actually participate in the national shelter movement, and then we have a local forum. It's called the Western Cape Women's Shelter Movement. So I belong to that forum. So we have a GBV office and a social worker that specifically only deals with GBV. So we try and create awareness. You can create awareness, but sometimes you do not necessarily get to the perpetrator. So we can, and 80% of the victims are either women and children. And then the 20% will be a male here or there. So they don't necessarily come to the office. But we try and create quite a bit of awareness. We are actively involved when it comes to 16 days of activism. So there's different campaigns happening right throughout the year. We have Child Protection Week, so we always try to do a major event or a big event when it comes to those big days. But in terms of the GBV office, we're going to run a campaign now where we are going to go out into the community and we're going to do something called pamphleteering. So we go out and then we just inform the community again, you know what, there is an office available. Approach the office if you need help. There we also refer some of the clients or the victims of GBV to go to the nearest shelter. And there they could get looked after. They can go for 2 weeks, or they can go for a 3 month stay. They get assistance if they don't have an ID or they need a job. There's always skills affiliated training for them as well. Our people have heart. We have, you know, Ellen Pakis lives around the corner from us. You've heard the story, right? So she's an activist. She assists a lot of mothers in the community. She does workshops, campaigning. So there's a lot of good also that comes out of the community. There's community leaders. There's, you know, our local ward councillors. They are really wanting to improve the lives of our youth, because there's where it starts. We have ECD centers. So they're already starting at the bottom, you know, educate the child at a young age. We have an ECD center at our facility. We charge next to nothing. Last year it was 250 Rand a month. So they already we are starting to eradicate some of those issues and to showcase and teach our children the fundamentals of education. Then they won't sit with this severe challenges in life. You know, without money, we say at times nothing can happen. If there's donors out there that can assist our NGOs because they can do the work they want to, there's community workers out there because they have the heart of the people. Fund a little project, fund a little child that's unable to pay school fees. Yes, there's school feeding schemes, etc. But when the child goes home, there's absolutely nothing happening at all. Yes, in social work, you're not going to get paid. We're doing a job times 10 out there, but we are not at times acknowledged for the service that we are rendering in the community. So on a professional level, I knew from the word go, although you're never going to earn what an engineer is earning. But because we are working with communities and we know why we are doing it, then you won't have a problem. So it really enriched me in that way.
What inspired you to do the Cape Flat stories?
I think what inspired me was people don't really know our stories, people don't know our history, and those in charge of us are actually trying to erase our history. And one of the things that actually inspired me was I was at work one day and I heard a lady say, the Cape Flats must become like Mitchell's Plain. And then a few weeks later, she said, but the Cape Flats must become like Montyville. And I realized she was referring to areas from off the Cape. She wasn't familiar how the Cape Flats existed. And I wanted to tell our stories, and I wanted to say, tell people, you know what? We're not a gang-infested area. That's the minority of people. The most of us are hardworking. Most of us are, you know, people that want the best for our families. And so I started Cape Flats stories by telling our stories to tell people more about the Cape Flats. The Cape Flats is not only one area, but it's an area that was formed because of apartheid, because of the hate towards colored people, and the segregation that took place with the 1950s Group Act. I interview a lot of people, so I interview politicians. It actually started here in this room. So 2020, a friend of mine told me, "Got a big platform. I think I would just say 140,000 followers." And he said to me, "You must use your platform more. You write about the Cape Flats, but make videos, interview politicians. You have 140,000 followers. Get people to interact." And it was in this room, somewhere in the middle, where I started with a conversation on the gun law. I still remember, and a friend of mine, we interacted on the gun law. And I realized that people want this type of information. And I started making more videos, gun laws, education, the things that we need on the Cape Flats. And eventually, it came to a point where politicians asked me to interview them because they wanted to introduce themselves, which was the biggest mistake for me. I mean it in a funny way, because then I met some of the big politicians and I got to know them, and also a bunch of there's a lot of liars out there as well, and I got to interact with them and also learn a bit more about politics, what politics is about. And from politicians, I interview comedians, anybody that's mostly the podcast is about talent excellence, where we display ourselves, where we expose ourselves to the positive side. So it started with, with the gun law, then it went to interviewing politicians, and from there onwards, everybody that has a voice is going to speak in side of the story. When you type in hate plates on Google, you see people with tattoos, you see people with, running with guns, with gang tattoos. Just rephrase that, running around with guns, and that's not us. Some of us are hardworking people. Some of us are really. I mean, I come from a background where my uncles were gangsters. My cousins, they are still gangsters. Didn't define me. It didn't. The opportunity was there, but I chose differently. I wanted to be a better individual. I wanted to work hard. So the podcast and the platforms to show people, but there is a better opportunities out there.
Do you think needs to be done in order, because it's so many of us fall into the cycle of gangs or drugs? Why do you think that is, and what do you think needs to be done? How do we change that?
That's a very, very important question that you're asking me. In most of our houses, we have fathers. We don't have fathers. We don't have role models. Many of our fathers have role models. Many of our fathers don't know how to be fathers because they didn't have a father. I think the father issue is one of the issues we need to address. We need to be present fathers. We need to be caring fathers. We need to be fathers that are setting examples. Yes, you are going to get cases where you're going to give your child the best, but your child is still going to choose the other way. I think in our homes we need to build families with values, and that is something that the Cape Flats lack is families with values. And there is people out there that's working hard, but we still have the issue of a mother raising a child alone. That is mostly the issues on the Cape Flats, where the mother is responsible for the children and the father just disappeared. And also, I think also what is our biggest problem is the schools. We have overcrowded school classes. In the class, if you look at the paper, you have almost 60 kids in the class, which is a lot. I mean, that used to be the ratio, or the ratio back in the day used to be 30-40. Now it's 16 more. I mean, we need to look at many things, and then also we need to look at our communities. We don't have recreational facilities. We are crammed into a little flat. The apartheid structure flats could only take a family where there's two, three, or four. Nowadays, you have people of 20 living in the flat at the back of the yard. So, no, the situation has become worse. But I think to come back to your initial question, what do we need to do? We need to become more responsible. We need to take ownership. We need to realize that politicians can't help us. We as a people need to change our mindsets, and we need to see how we can change our families. Because if I could do it, if the other people can do it, why can't all of us do it? There's a saying, you can take the horse to the water, but you can make it drink. Unfortunately, if what is happening is generations are getting lost. If I look at my mother, they were removed from Constantia. My grandmother was removed from his name, as well as my great grandmother. You have 3 generations. So I come from a mother. I decided that I'm going to work hard. In the same generation as me, I've got cousins. They decided differently. They wanted to become gangsters. They didn't want to work hard. Everybody blames government. Everybody blames everyone. But at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own choices. Because there's a saying, the choices that you make, you are going to carry the consequences. I think if you really want to change your life, you're going to start today. You're going to see what you can do different. If you're going to do the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same results. If you want to be different, you're going to have to do something different. So it comes down to you as an individual. I've also asked the question many times on my podcast, how do we change? I think the question should very simply answer you. We work with those that want to change. Everybody's going to want to change. But you must also remember the benefits of changing your life. The next generation that comes from you will live a better life. I never realized that with this platform, I will be able to help people find jobs. So what will happen is HR managers or people will send me job opportunities, and I will post it and I will share it. And some people would actually apply, and a lot of them got jobs, because of the interviews. There's also those that got the jobs in 2, 3 weeks down the line, they gave up, you know. But I think that the nice thing is this, seeing how the platform has helped so many people. And I mean, to me, it's not about being popular or famous. That wasn't the reason why the platform existed. In fact, I started the platform with the Peter Delight phone to tell people more about us. And and so I've met people over the years. I've met people that became family. We share job opportunities. People who reached out to me. There's cases where people were in trouble. They needed help. I brought some of them here to this venue, and they got help. So I think what stands out for me is that the platform is turned into a platform where we have helped some people. We can't help everyone, but there was people that was helped from a simple Facebook page into an NPC. And I think if we can do it, if I can repeat it for the next 5 years, then I think I would have reached my goal. Like I look at you, you are full of passion, you're full of energy. You're changing you're not making excuses. I look at my daughter, the same as well. You guys just need to be strong and continue. You are going to get those that's going to blame everybody else. But life is about choices. Like I've mentioned, it's about you wanting the best for you. You can't change um, yourself if you're not willing to look at what you're doing wrong. Many people, like, I'm on this health journey. So a few months ago, I was twice the size, and I ended up in hospital. And I realized I had to do something different. I have to look after myself. No use I'm going to save the world out there, but I'm not saving myself. And I've lost so a lot of weight, but it comes back to me making the choice. It came back to me wanting to be different and, fighting the fight for myself. So I think to come back to your question is that if you are going to want to be different, if you're going to want to see change, you're going to have to be consistent and believe in yourself. I want to leave a message that we need to stop making excuses. We need to start living life. And we need to find the purpose. You know what? Many of us are living a life without purpose. We're just living because we want to live. Find the purpose in your life. Find yourself is very important. And also, it's very important to realize you are going to make mistakes. And it's okay to make a mistake. But if you're going to stay there, if you're going to not fix your mistake, you are always going to, be the one behind everybody else. So be yourself, be the best version of yourself.
I toss my piece so I can piece up my piece to the puzzle. Instead of letting down some rain, let it piece to the muzzle. Inside my brain, I got some strings that I pulled to recover. Reincarnated phase, my loop split in two for my lover, corner my cage. My rib just rocked in the room, she stumbled. I picked her up, are you okay? Just to prove I'm my other. I need a way to let her know what's the move, so let's huddle. After that, we can cuddle. Picking up part of what I said in the back of the Hummer. It's an interesting summer. Penny for your thoughts, I gotta clean up my head for a fumble.